Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is September 21st. It may be September 22nd before this uploads, but summer has come to an end. And if you listen to this on September 22nd, welcome to fall. The seasons, at least going by the calendar, has changed. Not necessarily by the weather, but wherever you're at, you may still be having the heat, you may still be having the humidity. But going by the calendar, we are now in our fall season. So, again, my name is Mark. I want to thank you for stopping by. And I do believe when I type in the description, change your mind, it changes your life. I do believe that. Not only do I believe it, I know it to be so because I have lived it. Hey, listen, I want to pick up where I left off on the last video, and I was talking about my career with Unify. And at one time, Unify, maybe it still may be, but when I worked there, Unify was the largest textile industry in the U.S. And they bought up all of their competitors. Any competition, they bought them. So, I gave y'all the rundown of working for NetSys. And when I went into supervision, she told me that I needed to change my attitude. And that wasn't a negative thing. She realized, and she had been in management for many, many years. I think at that time I was in my 20s, early 20s, at least 25, because you had to be 25 to go into supervision. And I think she was somewhere in her 50s, not maybe even in her 60s, but she had been in management for many years. So when she made that comment, she was really trying to protect me because she had dealt with so many people. She knew my personality, and she knew that I was going to be taken advantage of. And, there again, I wish I had taken her advice earlier in life to go ahead and deal with issues on the onset. And what I can tie into that, if any of y'all are familiar with the Dallas, Texas pastor T.D. Jakes, he wrote a book, and I think that was one of the first inspirational books that it was gifted to me. So I read it, and it was called Loose That Man, Let Him Go. And what I remember in that book, he addressed, if there's a problem, you're going to either address it now or you're going to address it later. The only thing about addressing it later, it has gotten so much bigger. So therefore, it becomes so much more complicated. But I wish that earlier in my late 20s, 30s, I had really embraced what Annette had told me, and it would have saved me so much disappointment. But I had high hopes for people, especially, hoping people would grow into. But, now at the age of 60, I do realize people's going to be people. I mean, there's just no ifs, ands, and buts. There's no way about it. People's going to be people. And people's going to take advantage of what people's going to take advantage of. Now, there has been areas in my life that I have taken advantage of situations. But career-wise, look, I'm at a point now, I don't have anything else to prove. I want to make that clear. Whether that's in a friendship, relationship, career, ministry, faith, I don't have anything else to prove. I am actually living my best life. And I'm thinking maybe November, early December, I will address that. Turning 60 this year, I turned 60 January 6th of 2025. And I just want to share in the future, very, very near future, what this year has unfolded for me and the freedom and the relaxation and what led up to. But back to the career wise, I said that I would share with y'all, uh, I guess, somewhat a bad decision that I made when it came to my career. Now that I think about it, um, I'm not big on gray areas. Usually I am a black or white is yes or no. But in this situation, maybe I did make the right decision. And for years, I questioned. And many times when I shared the story, I would tell people that I made a bad career decision. But if I had to go back and retell that, I would be a little bit different about it now that I am open and I'm talking about it. And, you know, when I went into supervision, I'm going to think it's probably, it was a little less than a year in. And I knew it wasn't for me. They had put me in a production area, and coming from quality control, I spent a lot of time in the production area, so it wasn't a lot that caught me off guard when it came to because I had a good relationship with the supervisors. So I knew a little bit about the budget and the number of employees and what the responsibilities of the employees were, and so on and so on. There was a few things that I needed to learn, and and Unify sent us to workshops for that. I think at the time I went into it, it was me and two others, so it was three of us. So they would send us to another location. They would outsource when you learned about federal and state laws, the do's and don'ts, and about unions and uh, we went through workshops, fundamentals of supervision, and serving a resume, reprimand. I said resume, reprimands, the difference between the verbal reprimand and the written reprimand. Now, just to go back just a little bit, Annette, she was the department manager. I had worked for her previous when she was a department supervisor, still part of quality control. But I had been in quality control for the better part of 3 years. And again, I said that Annette was a very sweet person. When I first worked for her, I was still in high school. And if I needed any time off, uh, school related, absolutely no problem. She worked with me, encouraged me. I'm grateful for that. May she be resting in peace now. But she knew what she was talking about as far as dealing with issues on the onset and not to become employees' friends. You can be nice, you can be cordial, but don't become the friend. So, I say, I'm telling you the story. But I worked third shift and I was in quality control. And it was on a Sunday, it was on a Saturday night slash Sunday morning. And we had a changeover in production. And it was my job to, once they made the changes on the machines, it was my job to go out and check behind them and make sure it was correct, whether it was pulleys, gears, unit stacks, twist. I know I'm speaking a foreign language to a lot of people, but if you're in textiles, you know what I'm talking about. Air pressure, merge, all of that stuff. And we had a really, really good technician on third shift. And I guess between being sleepy, it was something about 4 to 4:30. Oh my God, I got so sleepy. But at 6 o'clock a.m., I was wide awake as it got closer to time to go home. But the lead technician had made a pulley change or gear change. And it was my job to look at the specifications and compare it with what he had put on there. At the time, there were no female technicians. I don't know if there is today or not. But I just sort of glanced. Everything sort of matched up, all the grooves and stuff like that. But anyway, they closed up the thing and they started the equipment. And I started my original checkouts. And I called it. The speeds wasn't correct. The speeds were controlled by those pulleys and those gears and the settings, A, B, C, D. So I asked the production supervisor to stop the machinery, and I was going to recheck it. And sure enough, they were put in reverse. They were the right gears, but they were put in reverse. So got that straightened out and started the equipment back up, and I proceeded with my checkout and stuff like that. And everything after that checked out okay. I released it into production, have at it, run it. So it wasn't my direct supervisor, but he was a supervisor in quality control. And he comes in on Sunday morning at 8 a.m. I meet him. I tell him what happened. He sort of laughs. Now, I've got the entire Sunday off, but on Monday, I had to go in at 4 o'clock. I worked a split shift. And so when I got there at 4 o'clock, shortly after the first shift people left, my supervisor called me into his office, and he had a written reprimand. Not a verbal, but a written. And he explained that Annette had okayed it. Matter of fact, Annette said do it. I don't know if that's to be so or not, but I went ahead and signed it. And I was pissed because that was the first mistake that I had made in almost 3 years. And they go straight for the guggler. And so I signed off on it, and at the bottom of it, it doesn't say that you agree with this. You acknowledge that it's going to go on your file or something like that. So I go back out into the lab, and I proceed to pull out all the papers and stuff that I need to proceed with my shift. And he comes out, he's talking to me, and he mentions it again. I called him by name, and I said, look, we'll either get over this or we'll die with it on our mind. I said, frankly, I don't care. So, it comes off of the file or what have you. Now, where I'm going here, Annette was able to separate the job versus the personal aspect of it. That's where I'm going here. She was a very, very nice person. She was interactive with the people, but she didn't let that override the job that she had to do. And that's what, when she was telling me to change my personality, if you didn't listen to the first video, that's what she was saying, that I'm going to have to change. And she let me know people will make you change. And was she ever so right? I think I was maybe into my second month, and I was hoping that people would recognize, hey, I am the supervisor. I'm not new with the company. I've been with the company. They didn't just bring me in. But that's not the way it worked. Now, was all of the people bad? No. In this production area, there was a total of 22 people. And at any given time, because of the rotation, I had anywhere from 11 to 15 of them at any given time. So that's a lot of people to oversee. That's a lot of attitudes to deal with. That's a lot of personalities. But, the job had to be done. But anyway, some things started happening, and I shared that with y'all. That's where Gary Ellison came back into play. When I told the plant manager that I was going to be leaving the company, it wasn't for me. And I think what got me over the track was just being honest with him. And when he said, I don't see where you're unhappy. And my response was, well, if I'm unhappy and I let it flow into my shift or my people, how can I expect them to have a positive attitude if I have a negative attitude? I think that was my safety net, is being honest. But now to fast forward, after Gary Ellison showed up on the scene at 4 p.m. and told me that I could go back to quality control, I was happy. I mean, I took off the necktie And it's like, I don't remember. I don't think I even finished the budget for that day. I don't even think I finished the time cards that day. I was like out of there, and this was on Friday, and they didn't know that was going to be my last day. I wasn't going to show up. Honestly, I had 6 days on and 3 days off. So Friday I would have had Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I wasn't even going to show up on that Tuesday. I was just going to be a no-show. But after going back into it about a week later, um, to keep the racket down, to keep the noise down, Gary then asked me to go to Stanton, Virginia, and that's where they had purchased. I had not even heard rumors that they had purchased another company. And a lot of times you hear little rumors here and there. And, I mean, it was silence. I mean, I didn't even know. So yeah, he said, it need to be done, to keep the noise down. And I told him that I would go. And it was supposed to be for a period of 2 weeks. And this is where I'm saying it gets into the gray area, yes or no. Now that I'm talking to you guys, I think I made the right decision. Matter of fact, I know I made the right decision. But what was supposed to be 2 weeks ended up being like a period of 6 months. And this is the pull, the strength that Unify had. We stayed at Best Western Stanton Inn, and it was connected to the restaurant next door, so we could go there to eat, bill it back to our room, or we was free to go anywhere we wanted to and just get the receipts, and it would be reimbursed. It was a pleasant experience. The people at this plant were phenomenal. Absolutely no complaints there. The first week that I went, I did ride up with Gary because he said, they know that we are coming, but he didn't know what their reaction was going to be. And if there was going to be any destructions to automobiles, he wanted to be to theirs, not the employees. He said if everything goes well the first week, then the second week we could drive because we was coming home that weekend. So everything went well. So from then on, I drove. But that first trip up, I think Gary had a plan in motion because on the way up, as we would talk, and he would talk about what he wanted to know what my experience was as supervisor in production. And I told him, the pros and the cons. And I said, he said, well, the reason I stepped in, Annette really took the bullet for me. Can we say bullet on here? Annette took the downfall because Gary said, well, Annette wasn't very clear to you. I said, no, she was very clear. She said, once you go salary, you don't go back. I wasn't going to throw Annette under the bus, and I didn't. So Gary, again, he comes back. He said, oh, no. Annette wasn't very clear in the information that she was giving you. Well, when he said that, I knew where he was going. He was setting the stage for what may come. And so anyway, after 6 months, I come back to the home base. And again, this is where Phyllis Crook came in. She didn't have anything to do with the decision, but I reported back to her. She was now not a NetSys, but I was in a different quality control lab. So she was the department manager, and she came to me and said, Gary wants to see you in his office. Gary is now over all of the quality controls, all of them, not just that main site, but wherever, from the home base to Stanton, Virginia. I think they have bought the company out in Brazil, a lot of local companies, but he was the commander and chief when it comes to quality control. And eventually, he would also become commander in chief of the quality control and research and development. So Gary calls me to his office, and he wanted me. And this is why I'm saying it's a great area. When I said, I may have made a mistake, but now in hindsight, I probably really didn't. But he wanted me to go to Stanton, Virginia as a lab supervisor. And just cut into the chase without going into the conversations that we had. Eventually, I said no. For years, I wondered if that was the right decision because the people that went in different departments. Now, I don't know who he chose to be the lab supervisor there. I never asked questions, A, B, C, D. I don't know who he chose. He may have chose someone that was already there. He may have chose someone from another location. I just don't know. But the people that went, when they came back, the majority of the people went for like 2 years. And so when they came back to the central location, they didn't go back into production or quality control, whatever the case may be. They got promotions. They went to corporate hall. They either went to the corporate location or they went to the corporate hall at the central or the main location. So for years, I wondered if I made the right decision. Now, in talking to you ladies and gentlemen, I think that I did because once I came back, I was back in quality control, but I didn't go back into process control, which was out in the production area and following up behind people and checking behind people and checking different settings on the machine to make sure that they were correct and all of that good stuff. But I went into select yarn technician, fancy name, right? But all I done was a new lot. That's what they called it, a lot. And it was based on whatever plant was in. Like plant 3 would have a 3 before. Plant 2 would have a 2. Plant 5 would have a 5. Of course, plant 5 had not came along at that time. But just as an example, plant 4 would have 4. Then have like 4, 7, or whatever the case may be. So I done that for several months, and actually I enjoyed it because once a new product went up, then the first run, maybe the first 2 runs, depending on how critical the customer was, it had to go through what I was doing then. And I think it was 3 or 4 of us that was doing that. And the product had to be knitted into a sleeve, and it had to go through a dye, and it had to be graded, and had to be okay. Then all of it could be released to make sure that all the colors was the same. There was no what they call dye flashes, and I know I'm speaking a foreign language here, or streaks, blah, 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 blah. And all of it was numbered. So if there was a problem, I could fill out a card and say, no, I wrote it on a clipboard and say, machine 34, position 4, streak. So it would be flagged out until a fixer, technician, whatever, could check it out and see what was wrong. But that particular position was pulled out of production. The rest of it was okay. It may be 5 or 6, 7 or 8, what have you. I actually enjoyed that. So I'd done that for several months, and actually I enjoyed it. Then eventually I did go back into process control. The pay was a little bit better. The schedule was a little bit better. So I went back into it. And then eventually I went into research and development. And I think that was the best career move because that was really transferable if I was going to stay with any type of textile industry, anything like that, because now I've got so much experience under my belt. And I really realized where when I was in quality control, even going back to Annette Sears and me making that mistake and got reprimanded, I mean a written reprimand. But in research and development, I had access to a whole lot more information. And then I could see even the mistakes that the quality control managers were making. So that was a really awakening for me. And I know awakening may be a bad word in the environment that we in, but I became aware of, wait a minute, they wasn't as perfect as the standard that they were holding the employees up to. So now, the reason I said by me telling Gary no, that may be a gray area, yet while I was in research and development, um, I worked, my manager, his name was Jim Crow. Phenomenal. I mean, imagine Jim Crow being a black man working for a man named Jim Crow. Phenomenal. Phenomenal to work for. So I go in on second shift. I'd already shared with y'all about Phyllis telling me to straighten my black ass up because she had to set up a second interview. But Jim Crow was phenomenal to work for. And he was so freaking laid back. I mean, it was like, and then, I made my share of mistakes in research and development, and so did the other people, but we're doing research. How do you really F that up, right? So Jim was comical. When I started working for him, he only probably had 3 or 4 years before, he was going to retire. But I went in one day on second shift, and he told me, he's like, Mark, Lincoln, I think was the manager's name. But Gary comes into play with that as well. They had started up Plant 5, and they were trying to transfer different ops, say from 3, Plant 4, Plant 2, and all of this was new equipment, so all of the tests had to be done, resettings, air pressures, temperatures, all of that had to be reset. And Jim told me that they wanted to know, I don't know who all they was, but wanted to know if I would go to this plant, transfer over to this plant. And I told Jim I wasn't interested. No problem. He took it face value, no problem. Well, I go into second day, and that particular manager of that plant, or that research and development plant, he wanted to know if it was him, if he was the problem. No, Lincoln is not the problem. And I'm pretty sure that was his name. I just didn't want to transfer over to that. So I go in the next day. So those 2 no's weren't enough. Now keep in mind, I said earlier in this conversation that Gary had became the site manager of all of the quality controls. Not just the site manager, but over all of the quality controls and the research and development. So lo and behold, I go in the next day, and Gary is sitting in Jim's chair. And Jim wasn't in there. So, not knowing what was going on, Gary's like, he just wanted to talk to me. And he wanted me to transfer over. I guess he thought if he came in, I couldn't say no the second time. But I told him no. I had no interest. Well, we had a conversation. I wanted to know what was in it for me. Am I going to be able to go to first shift? And he said no, it would be a lateral move. He said I would make more money because of the overtime. So I told him no, and he told me he was disappointed in me. That's okay. If this is over, it is okay. If this is over, it's okay. So he leaves, and Jim comes in to inform me of what my duties is going to be for my shift. And he said that he had talked to Gary and told Gary, now leave my man alone. So that was the second time I told Gary no. Now I want to fast forward. I stayed in research and development for several years, probably the better part of 9 years. So when I decided to leave Unify, it was my decision. Look, in the first video, I told you my ass just couldn't get fired. Not that I didn't try from time to time. But this is where I'm saying it's a great area, and I feel like I made the right decision because I left Unify. I just got tired. I don't even have the words for it. It was just time to go. And so that was on, I gave my 2 weeks notice. I worked my 2 weeks notice. I left early on that last Friday. And it was like Monday morning. I was like, wow, I don't have a job. Look, but I have a mortgage. I have a car payment. Just bought a new John Deere mower. That's how tired I was of what was going on. And anyway, I sat down and and this is when online was really coming into focus, and there was a combination, and I never done a resume, uh, but there was examples of resumes online. I definitely never done a cover letter. So when I woke up on Monday morning, I said, "Wow, I don't have a job to go to." Working since I was in middle school, having to have a worker's permit, and worked all through because I had several jobs, working after school, uh, you know, growing up in the country, working on, priming tobacco. I had driven a school bus. I mean, I had never been without a job. And, it was my decision. But it only took about 3 weeks. Now, I did start my ministry training. That was the biggest reason I left Unified, because I wanted to go into the ministry. Um, I really somewhat enjoyed public speaking, so I somewhat wanted to start making a career out of that. If I had started walking into my truth early on, I would have probably been able to make a fortune at it. But I did try to go at it being honest and open and treating people right. So I was never able to make a lot of money at that. But what I did do is I started mailing resumes and cover letters. I started sending them online. But there was a company. Now remember, I had told Gary no about the supervisor job and relocating to Virginia, because I really felt like if he wanted me to relocate, he should have offered me the department manager job. That's what I felt at the time, but he didn't. That's the reason I'm saying it's a gray area. But after I left Unify and I started sending out resumes, I learned how to do my resume. I learned how to do cover letters. There was a company that did reach out, and I had an interview for. And not only did they bring me on, but they also brought me in as product development manager. So that's the reason I'm saying there's a gray area. Gary was lowballing me, because it would have really been beneficial for him and the company for the experience that I had to go there. But there was another company that I had never worked for that brought me in. After the interview, there was three people, three gentlemen that interviewed me. And after about a week, I think they made their decision and reached back out to me and offered me the position as product development manager. So now I really feel like Gary downplayed me, and I had spent so many years with Unify. So he really did downplay. Now, I stayed with this company probably like 6 months. I did enjoy it. Had my own little office. I was going out visiting customers, problem solving. Oh, it was impressive, to be out, on the floor, just checking behind and seeing what needs to be fixed. And this announcement come over the intercom, call coming in for Mark Of course, they would call my last name, and I run up to my office and take the call. And that was impressive. It made me feel good, especially knowing where I came from. But even then, I didn't appreciate where I came from. That 11-year-old kid that couldn't read, and now they're calling your name over this intercom. So I stayed there, I don't know, probably like 6 months, and I told then, I don't know if I reported to this person or not. Look, there again, I tried to get fired, but they wouldn't fire me. I was taking 2-hour lunches. I really was. I disappeared for 2 hours. At that time, after I left Unified, and I always had this ambition that I wanted to be the entrepreneur. I wanted to be my own boss. So I told, I assume, I don't know, I don't know. I told this individual that when we shut down for the holidays, which would have been Christmas, I wouldn't be back. And he didn't believe me. That ties to Dr. Maya Angelou. When someone shows you who they are, and I changed it a little bit, when someone tells you, we have they're not, they're just having a bad day. No, I was honest with him. I won't be back. So, as in the production area, as they was shutting the machinery down and people was getting ready to start their holiday, the quality control manager came to my office. Don't that sound good? Came to my office, and my desk was clean. I mean, my desk was clean. And he's like, Mark, what's going on? I called him by name. I said, I informed you that I wouldn't be back after we shut down for the holidays. I think he was sort of shocked, but that's when the reality set in. Now, what I did do, I did go back because had the key to the front door, had key to the personnel office, ABCD. Even during the shutdown, I went back to my office because there was some work going on, maintenance within the plant or whatever, insulation, painting, ABCD. So I did go back and, to finish cleaning out my desk. So, then when I left there, I took a month off, total month, to be like, okay, Mark, what is it that you want? And that's how Youth with a Purpose came about. So I found a small location and signed a lease on that and started prepping that to start Youth with a Purpose Center with a vision in mind to help youth, the young people, giving them a safe place to come, creating an environment that they can enjoy, ABCD. Now, I enjoyed it, but financially, that really did not work out very well for me. So I started it in that area of North Carolina, and those young people were really on tack. They were already prepared for college. They came in. Some of the younger ones, I brought a couple of people in to tutor them, but they were really on point. So I did relocate it into the inner city, and that was a different ball game, but it was rewarding. But it still didn't bring in a lot of finances for me. So it's one thing with all of the compassion and all of the concern, but bills still have to be paid. And it got to a point that I had invested so much of my money into it that I decided that I have to go in a different direction. And so I did close it down in North Carolina for a period of time. I went to Florida, wanted to learn a little bit more about the homeless and what was going on into the homeless population. And I done that. And as I learned that, when I came back to North Carolina, I wanted to start incorporating what I learned. So while I was in Florida, the name was sort of misleading because now I'm working with the homeless and young people. So from Youth with a Purpose, I changed the name to Words of Inspiration, and with the a mission of just encouraging people, uh, trying to find a positive in the midst of the negative. And given what I had lived through, I know that it can be done. 11 years old, couldn't read, going into foster care, becoming a product development manager, started my own nonprofit organization, uh, not only learning to write resumes and cover letters, but now having to learn to set budgets and spreadsheets and all of that that goes along with. But see, I did have some background because, as I shared with y'all in the last video, and I don't know why I never talked about it, but going to Surrey Community College in business management naturally helped me with that, but I never had a chance to implement it because everything I had done had already been pre-designed. If you go into the corporate world, all you have to do is learn their program, cut and dry. Their programs on the computer. You just learn to follow their program. But when you start designing your own, you really deserve the rewards that you get. So, me starting Youth with a Purpose was a more mistake than me telling Gary no. Because by me telling Gary no, it opened the door to become the product development manager. And then after I came back from Florida, back to North Carolina, I knew that, in reorganizing now from Youth with a Purpose to Words of Inspiration and redesigning the whole program, I wanted to take on another part-time job, made. So I did go back to Unify for a short period of time, but they put me on this machine. I knew that wasn't going to work. Nothing wrong with that. But now I'm in my 40s. I'm too old. Man versus machine. Production aspect of it. I'm too old for that bullshit. So I stayed there. It paid the bills and had some savings, blah, 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 blah. But one day I was leaving for work. I was on second shift. I worked from 3 to 11, I think, and the commute was horrendous. I mean, it was like an hour and a half commute from work when I moved back to North Carolina, blah, 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 blah. So one day I was dressed, but I had a little time, and I went, I think it was on Monster.com or Career Builders or something like that. Same old resume. When I tell you the same old resume, all I've done was changed a few dates on it. And the only thing I left on there, because all of those knick-knack jobs that I had, I didn't put that on there. From when I worked for that company in Florida, I didn't even put that on there. This is where I encourage people to start a business, whether you do anything with it or not, especially a nonprofit organization. You can always fall back on it. Because I would say, okay, yes, from 2003 to 2015, yeah, I decided I couldn't do it anymore. Grants came so hard to come by. So from where I've done these mediocre jobs, I didn't even have to put that on the resume, because you can look at the website and under the Secretary of State, and you can see where Youth with a Purpose is legit, and where I've done the name change, Words of Inspiration, is legit. So these little jobs that I may work 3 months, say, nope, this is not for me. This job may work 2 months, this is not for me. I could fill those gaps in and say, okay, no, I was a business owner. So when I came back to North Carolina and I went back there again, I was on my way to work. Well, I was dressed to go to work. I had maybe 30, 40 minutes to kill, and I went on Monster.com or Career Builders, I forget which one it was, and I shot out this resume to this company that was looking for an entry-level supervisor. They called it shift leader, but it's actually entry-level supervisor, and they call it shift leader, that they can get away with less pay. So, I did land an interview with them. And so where Unify brought me back on at the beginner level, knowing that I had spent 18 years with this company, did they owe me another quality control job, research and development job? No. Because when I was there, they paid me for the job that I'd done. Do I feel a certain way that they started me back at the lowest level possible? Yeah, I do feel a certain way about that. So I knew I wasn't going to be there long. It gave me the pleasure to tell them the second time that I would be leaving, but I didn't give them a 2 weeks notice. No. Because another company closer to where I lived at the time got my resume, and again they brought me in as an entry level supervisor, and I knew that I had the job even during the interview. Thank you, Bobby. I won't call your last name, but thank you, Bobby. He let me know that they was getting ready to start up another division of the company in research, and he wanted me to be a part of that. So that let me know that I had the job. And he wanted me to learn. He's like, I'm bringing you in on this level, and I need you to learn every aspect that you possibly can about this company. And so I really did. I asked questions. Now, and I can also say it was on this that I really did take Annette's advice to change. So by them bringing me in with no experience with this company, naturally some people's going to have some problems with it. So the first problem that arose was within the first 3 or 4 days. And it was, I don't know if the gentleman was Hispanic, Latino, Mexican, I don't know. To me, I just group them all together like they do black people. But there was a white gentleman, and the white gentleman made some type of what I would consider a racial slur to this gentleman. And the gentleman felt it necessary for him to tell me that the white guy that said, oh, he can get away with it, but if I say it, we were going to end up in personnel. Now, my response is why would you allow this person to say that to you and you be okay with that? Second of all, why would I make that statement to you? So see now the difference. Now, I was going to be within this vicinity for like 2 weeks. So then the next time they moved me, it was in a different area. And the gentleman, he was also Hispanic, Latino, Mexican, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. But he started griping because I guess he felt like the people that he was over deserved the job that Bobby had brought me into. Now, he would have really flipped out if he'd have known what the longer term vision Bobby had planned for me when they were going to start up their research department. He wanted me to be a part of it. Oh, he would have really flipped out. But he started making the comments about, whatever the gentleman's name was. I don't know what it was. Billy Bob deserved that job, or deserved the job that you have. I called this gentleman by name, Flamingo. That's his name. Or was his name at the time, whatever. I said, I'll tell you what we're getting ready to do. I said, now, I have been to the back, and Bobby is back there. So we can do one or two things. We can go back and have the conversation with Bobby, and you can get a better understanding of why Bobby chose me over Billy Bob. Or I can go and get Bobby and ask Bobby to come up here and explain to you why he made his decision. Oh, that conversation came to in very, when I tell you that conversation came to a halt. See, now I'm putting it to action when Annette said I needed to change. Okay, this is not my problem. Upper management made this decision. So that's where you need to take this problem to. So, in a nutshell, did I make the right decision telling Gary no about becoming the lab supervisor? I didn't know the answer until I started talking to you, ladies and gentlemen, and started thinking about, now, wait a minute, other companies brought me in as product development manager. Another company brought me in as a entry-level supervisor that was eventually going to become a part of their research department. And the reason that didn't happen is because I started having vision problems. That's the reason I never restarted Words of Inspiration when it came to the website and the fundraising and stuff like that, because the vision problem came so severe. And when I went to Bobby with that, because Bobby didn't know it, but just a couple of days prior to him bringing me on, I had eye surgery. I don't know why he didn't notice the dilation in my eyes, because when they do eye surgery, they use a different dilation. Your eyes are dilated for a couple of days. But evidently he didn't, and if he did, he didn't say anything about it. But I had to come away from that company, and that I do regret, because the possibilities there was so great. And I looked so forward to growing with that company, and then also had grown so much within myself. Now, I still had a lot of growing to do in my personal life, but business aspect of it, I could separate the business from personal. So, did I make the right decision when I told Gary Ellison no? Not once, but twice. So, I had shared that story with people, and I told them that that was a mistake in my career. But if I ever have the opportunity to have that conversation with the same people again, I would probably have a question mark there, knowing now of the companies that actually was able to open a greater door for me than even what Gary did. I still feel like, and I could be wrong, I still feel like if Gary asking me to relocate, I should have been the site manager, not a supervisor. And there's a huge, huge difference in falling under somebody, because as a site manager, I would have reported directly to Gary. But as a supervisor, there was an in-between person. And the one he chose for that, I really wasn't impressed with. I really wasn't. So I appreciate y'all listening to me. My name is Mark. I'm wishing you peace, love, joy, and happiness.